traffic study was not one of the requirements for granting the exception, and as of 30 January, in an email we received from the developer, there is no longer a plan for an impact study. The chairman of the board asked the city attorney for a definition of detrimental, as that's the standard required under the city code. The city attorney could not even provide a definition of the term detrimental. Instead, she provided an example and an opinion. This is not the role of the city attorney. The analysis was basically, this sounds like a great idea, let's do it. The applicant's going to work with the members, they'll do a traffic study, so let's go ahead and grant the exception. This was required to be done before the exception was granted. We have a city code for a reason. The city codes establish the standards, and those standards protect the citizens of Cocoa Beach. It is your responsibility as the city commission to ensure that the city code is upheld. We do have a right to appeal, and I've spoken to attorneys, and it will estimate it will cost $20,000 to $30,000 for us to appeal this decision merely to have the city code upheld. That sounds like a high price to pay when all we want is for them to follow the city code. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff reports?
Yes, Mayor Commissioners. A couple items. FDOT has been out on our A1A the last several days. Again, they were scheduled for next week, not this week. We've worked with them on that. They actually, our city engineer reached out to them, and due to really concrete was available this week for the contractor, and that is why they actually showed up this week and started work even during day hours when they're not approved for that. So we've had several conversations with FDOT. We've reiterated that the schedule is that they cannot operate between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. No work between those hours. So again, we'll continue to work with them. As I've explained to several citizens who called, and they were upset. Even a few of them wanted us to file suit against FDOT that the roads are owned by FDOT. So we've had a lot of activity on our phone lines in reference to that, and we understand it. I think I was caught in it. Most of you were probably caught in it if you were traveling during any of those hours. But we'll continue to work with them. I just wanted to report that the YouTube meetings, or these meetings are actually on YouTube. We actually provide this information, Lori and our IT department combined, and I think Lori mainly does this, correct, Lori? She sends it. You send it to our governmental station,
yes,
and it's uploaded. So it's on our government station after this meeting. So tomorrow or Monday, she uploads and sends to the government station, so it can still be viewed there. It's not solely on YouTube. If any of your constituents ask that question, it is available. And let's see, we are working on planning the next second strategic planning meeting, so I'll send out an email to each of you. And just a reminder that we do have a February 22nd ethics seminar sponsored by our city attorney, and we'll send information out. I believe we have, but look for continued information. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin, I just have a quick question. So do we have feedback from FDOT? Are they going to really comply and not work 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. when people are trying to get to work?
They've stated they would.
All right.
They apologized. Again, they gave us a lengthy, description of what happened, and a little bit, again, they run into the same problems that we do. I think the biggest worry for us is they showed up this week and not next week, so their notices were not put out to our citizens. There are a whole host of issues from that perspective, but I understand, because concrete is very difficult to really get. It's one of those, soft services in such a sense that it's hard to find, it's hard to get in line, and if they didn't accept it, they were moving it on to the next person or the next contractor, and we don't know when they would have been, and FDOT would have been in the same situation we find ourselves sometimes, just in line waiting.
Thank you.
But they were willing to listen to us. We had several conversations yesterday and today.
Great.
And it's 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., so they're working overnight, or you meant 9 p.m. to 7 a.m.?
9 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m.
So
they
working
cannot
night
work
shift. Got it.
during the day. If I said the other, I apologize. 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. they cannot work.
No, you said it right.
Okay.
City attorney?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. City Commission, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I didn't have anything to say, but then I started thinking about it. I'd like to look into the golf cart, restrictions as far as just being on Minuteman. I think that we should allow it to be any roads in Cocoa Beach under, or 30 miles an hour and under. I don't think it's fair to the people that are further south down, Brevard that they can't take their carts to the golf cart course or, I mean, just Minuteman Causeway doesn't make sense to me. So I'd like us to look into maybe extending that to all roads in Cocoa Beach 30 miles an hour or less.
So we are looking into that. I've had several inquiries. We've added it to the task force that's also looking at the bicycles. Again, it just seemed like that those kind of fit together when we just speak of motorized vehicles. And then we also will look at the state statute, which allows authorized golf carts or state, or I guess it's DMV approved golf carts, and expanding that or discussing what that might look like. But we did add it to that task force. And that task force has been established. I don't know the first date that they will meet, but they are established.
Great. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Wallace?
I don't think that.
All right. Commissioner Williams?
I'll pass.
Commissioner Hutchinson?
Two things, quick. On the YouTube, so that's good. It's posted it. If you subscribe, you can monitor it real time. But I've noticed last time on the sustainability, I was watching it seemed like the first minute or so was cut off. I don't know if they just weren't hitting the go button or what, but
Typically, IT, they're behind those curtains over there, so the minute that they hear the call to order, they turn it on. Maybe there was just a little miscue, so I'll mention it to
okay,
them.
yeah, just because I think up front they're taking
Okay.
roll call or whatever.
Okay.
And the second thing, I do definitely second the golf cart. Robin and I have talked. I'd like to see it. The model I proposed was a lot like what Satellite Beach has, basically everywhere but A1A. You can go to all the beach access.
That's basically what I was saying, but it's just easier just to say, I mean, any road that we have is 30 miles an hour or less, that's a city road,
Right.
so I think it would make it easier to enforce than just like splitting it up between the streets or whatever.
Totally on board with it. Yep. I like it. It'll help parking problem. It'll help emissions problems. I like it. That's it for me.
All right, okay, we'll go back, just on that subject. So, what's the speed limit on the road where you're crossing A1A from any of the streets going toward the beach?
20.
So you can now, so what you're proposing is to be able to cross A1A and non-DMV.
You're allowed to do that. You can cross that road with a vehicle. You can't drive on it, but you can cross it.
So I think that the proper place is a task force, let the police be involved in that. Again, some of the other cities have allowed for during crosswalks and crossover areas, so not a crossover in the sense of the beach, but a roadway. They do have some exceptions, so I think again.
Well, when we say, what I thought I heard was, but not on A1A. But if you're crossing A1A, then you're on A1A.
So A1A is actually set up for the legalized golf carts. You can drive a legal golf cart.
Right,
on
but if
A1A.
you're doing a crossing of A1A from any of the streets,
Some of the cities do allow that, so I know that.
well,
but-
all I'm saying is, it's, some people don't maintain their golf carts all that great, and some are electric, and some are the ones where you push the pedal and it turns the starter and cranks the engine, and they sputter a little bit, and if somebody thinks they're gonna pull across A1A and they get stuck, they're gonna get plowed.
I mean, 5-year-old kids cross on their bicycles.
Well, I'm just trying to, that nuance of not on A1A, but now we're letting them cross A1A, is that gonna put us in a liability situation?
Again, I think the task force with police involved, then we'll go through either the city attorney or whomever else she specifies before we bring it back to you. We'll vet out the entire process.
Yeah, I'm generally supportive, and I think that's something that'll get fleshed out when we have further discussions. I mean, at some point, people have to take responsibility for themselves. Sorry. Government can't solve all the problems. Just two things. I attended SIBMIL and General Purdy from Patrick Space Force was the speaker. And in case you didn't hear, the Cape is not going to, they're going to continue launching. Expansion is going to continue. I wish they wouldn't do it at 2:45 a.m. That would be just my personal request, but they do. That being said, there are over 20 companies right now vying for launch space we don't even know about, besides Blue Origin and SpaceX. So it is not stopping. It is going to continue. Florida and Texas are the #1 growth states in the country. It's just something we're going to have to deal with. The other is I also attended the EDC meeting last night, and they are embarking on a branding mission for the whole region to attract talent to our area, because you have literally thousands of engineers coming here daily, and that won't stop either. Also attended the Beach Bucket kickoff. Great job by the Sustainability Committee, and Kelsey did a great job. And of course, the #1 trash item picked up, cigarette butts. So maybe we'll have a conversation on that someday. Other than that, that's all I got. Thanks. Consent agenda, City Attorney.
All right, this is item H, consent agenda. 1, approve the January 19, 2023 commission meeting minutes. Representative, City Clerk Department, recommendation approved. Item 2, appoint the following members. A, Planning Board, appoint Orson Tarver to serve a term ending in November 2024. Seat 2, Vice Mayor Capizzi. Representative, City Commission, recommendation approved.
Move to approve the consent agenda as read.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. City Attorney, item J1.
All right, approve piggybacking on Hillsborough County's contract for the purchase of 3 200 horsepower turbo blowers manufactured by APG Neuros, distributed by Carter and Verplank, Inc. in the amount of $711,035. The cost covers equipment, materials, and installation. This is a budgeted item. Representative Brad Calzo, Water Reclamation Director, recommendation approved.
If I may, just for a moment before we ask Brad to come up, and Brad. So in this particular item, we've asked for 3 or 4 considerations in your motion. In the future, we will start providing you a resolution, because with multiple motions, it's important that each of these are read into the record. If in your approval process they are missed, then it could create some challenges for staff, as well as when we go back to the city attorney as to the direction of the agenda item. This particular one, we've asked, so we've stated that the consideration to approve the purchase of the 3 blowers, consideration of the dollar amount $711,035. We'd like to add in there a contingency of $125,000. Again, for the future of things we don't know right now, but we also have a warranty we were just given information on today, the $40,000 to $60,000, that we do believe we should consider the warranty, and I'll let Brad explain that. So we would like to have a contingency not to exceed $125,000. I think we're fine with that. $125,000. The piggyback with Hillsborough County contract needs to have an addendum placed into the packet, and I spoke to the city attorney this evening, so we just like to have permission for the city manager or the mayor, can be either one, to sign that, but to add the addendum linking the Hillsborough County contract to the city of Cocoa Beach, just so that we are completely legal, thank you, from the city attorney's perspective. We would like to use funds from our biosolids project, so we would transfer the $711,000 plus the $125,000, so $836,035 to this fund, and reduce the biosolids project by that amount. And the biosolids project would be rebudgeted in the next year If for some reason we're able to bid, we're hoping to bid that package this year. If we're able to begin that package this year, we'll bring that project to you, in which we would then have real numbers on those, on the biosolids, and we would be able to reestablish a budget. So there are several items in this particular project, or this item, that we'd like for you to consider. And I'd like to, for Brad, just to give you a brief, I'm sorry, City
I'd
Attorney,
like
a
to make
brief
motion
understanding.
to discuss further.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I just have a clarification. So it's still one motion. We just have to delineate all these items. Is that correct?
What you could do is you could say that you are moving in accordance with the statement of the city manager, so that, because she added some items.
Right. So we're, avoid any confusion. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, Brad. All you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Brad Kelso, Water Reclamation Director. With me also is Bill Collins, our Operations Manager. Just one piece of information before I begin. We did hear about 2 hours ago that the company is offering an extended warranty for 3 years at $40,000 or 5 years at $60,000. The proposal in front of you only includes a 1-year warranty. So please consider one of those 2 options.
Is that per unit?
Yes. No.
For the three.
Aggregate for all
Yes,
three?
for all three, yes. So, I mean, just in general, we're having a lot of issues with our current turbo blowers. Our turbo blowers supply air to the treatment plant. They feed, the microorganisms that do all the work in our plant. They get food from us, we feed them air, and they remove the nutrients. So without air, they start dying, our water quality goes down, and it could potentially be an environmental disaster. So we've been having issues since these blowers were installed in 2012, and that's why we're here today.
So that was my first question. What's the date of the equipment that's there right now? 2012?
2012.
So we're well past shelf life.
Yes.
Good.
So Brad, for the record, the life expectancy by the manufacturer for this equipment is?
The new proposed blowers have a product design life of 30 years.
Okay, so a design life of 30 years, but we only get a 1-year warranty, and if we pay $60,000, we can get a 5-year warranty on the 3 units. So this is a risk analysis. I mean, if the design life is 30 years, I wouldn't think they're gonna fail in the first 5, so why are we gonna throw $60,000 at them?
Kind of with you, Skip.
Yeah. And then,
I mean, are they prone to corrosion?
They've made a lot of advancements in the years for saltwater environments. That's one of the biggest problems that we had with our existing units. So they actually coat all of the electronics with protective coating to help against the salt water. They have close to 10 to 15 installations in Florida. We actually went up to Jacksonville Beach and looked at the exact blowers that are in this proposal.
That was my next question. How long have those been in service?
They've had 10 years.
So the ones that are in Jacksonville Beach are 10 years,
Yes.
and they're still functioning?
They actually have 6 of them up there, and they're still functioning, yes.
How long have you been working with our current blowers?
Yeah.
2012 they were installed.
But you've been here since then?
Correct.
When was your first failure you had with those ones?
Immediately.
Okay.
Since they were installed, they've been failing like crazy. That whole binder on the floor there is full of emails between the manufacturer, the contractors, of all the failures that we had.
How much would you say a year you spend on repairs for those blowers currently?
I think in the life of them, we've only spent close to $250,000 on all 3. I had those numbers pulled.
For repairs and purchase?
The purchase price in 2012 was about $276,000,
Mm-hmm.
and the repairs that we've made over the course of the years, not including the warranty period, has been about $250,000.
Where are these, for the record, where are these manufactured, assembled?
The existing ones?
No, the ones we're proposing to buy.
The company is a Canadian company. They do have a manufacturing facility in New York. Most of their equipment is domestic, but there are some pieces that come from overseas.
And by overseas, what countries?
I believe Korea. Yeah. I think it's Korea.
So what I understand is a lot of the parts on this new system is not proprietary. You can basically get a lot of this stuff locally or more quickly if you need it, and that you will also be trained on how to repair, so you don't have to pay for other people to repair as well.
Correct. There's a lot more flexibility with the proposed blowers for us to make our own repairs, buy it locally, have a representative in Florida that will sell and distribute those parts to us.
So this, if we get new, it could potentially save us money in the next 10 years rather than cost us the same amount to have old blowers.
I would agree.
Mayor, I'd like to propose a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, and I'll paraphrase it before I actually make it for the record.
If you wanna just,
But what I'm gonna say is, in the amount not to exceed $800,000, because the city manager was asking for some contingency, because we don't know between now and when they ink the contract if there's gonna be price changes. Hopefully it'll still be the 71135. I don't believe with the 30-year design life, I mean, when I buy a TV at Walmart and they want a protection plan for half the cost of the, TV, I don't do it. And I don't think it's worth it to do that. So I'm gonna move to approve the purchase of 3 turbo blowers manufactured by APG NEUROS and distributed by Carter and Verplank Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $800,000 by piggybacking on the Hillsborough County contract and using funds transferred from the budgeted biosolids project, which is not planned for completion in this fiscal year.
Thank you. And the addendum needs to be signed, that you give authority for signature of the addendum.
And not to have
Decline the
any
warranty.
Yeah, I didn't include warranties. And just look at, well, we have to have a second before we can keep discussing.
I say.
motion and second?
The blowers that you went to go see, you said it was what, Jacksonville?
Jacksonville Beach.
So, do you know if they had a warranty?
I don't know that.
Well, they've had them for 10 years, so it would have expired by now anyway, and they're still working.
Well, they're gonna train you to
I
fix
wonder-
the stuff, and I doubt that the parts will cost more than $60,000 in the next 5 years if you can fix them.
Yes, Knurls will send us trained technicians. They'll train our entire staff. Like I said, there is some equipment that we're not gonna be able to replace. They will have to send technicians out to replace it, but a lot of the items on the blowers, we would be able to replace if need be.
Do you know if they had failures? Have they been having issues like failures in the first 5 years, or did they tell you about the history of it?
They did explain recently they did have one of the core failure. The core is the main motor of the blower, and they have had a couple VFDs go out. That's the electronic variable frequency drive. I don't know the full history of it, but they did have some failures recently.
And how long, what has it been since they ordered them?
10 years.
So one failure after 10 years?
I don't know if there's been more than one, but they told us about the recent one.
Do you know if they have any other options available for warranties, like longer than 5 years? That's just what they're presenting, or?
I can pose the question to them, but that's the information that we just got two hours ago. If you'd like me to pose that question, I will.
I
if we pass this as is, and we get further information where we could purchase the warranty, I'm sure they're not gonna not take our money if we've already inked this contract, and we wanna buy this expensive warranty after we've inked the contract. So that will be a separate motion by the commission. What's in front of us tonight is to move forward with the contract so we can piggyback with Hillsborough on their contract and get this going, so that the blowers that we have now that are failing in the sewer plant.
I understand what the motion is, but, I wanna look further. I mean, how can we do that? I know we have to move forward, I need, who needs these blowers, but how can we work that to look into,
Again, we can look at that, we can send it to you as an email, just here's the information. You've built in a contingency, then we can bring it to another agenda for, addition. It's gonna take, we figured about 20 weeks before the item can be built. That's about the lead time for this. We have some time. So we have some time to be able to go back and look at that and add it to another agenda. So.
I'd like to, just for my personal knowledge, if you could ask, what failures they've had in the past 10 years and how much money that they have actually spent, on, fixing those failures.
Jacksonville Beach.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll also ask Hillsborough County, again, they have the contract too, and they have these
That way
installed.
we can weigh
You've got two municipalities who are using these units.
I find myself concurring with Commissioner Williams, because most warranties, when you buy something, that's where the profit margin is extremely high, and it's usually not worth it. So, but it's always good to have a decision based on all the metrics.
Sure.
So
It sounds like part of the benefit of these is they are self-repairable to
Yeah.
some degree, more than the
Than the
legacy
current.
versions, yeah.
Yeah, the current versions are not. That's
Right.
one of our challenges. When Brad and Bill have to bring the current company out here, it's about $10,000 for each of their visits to come here from Pennsylvania to repair them, if they're able to repair them, and if they've already shipped the parts. So it's a costly venture right now with the current contractors. With just being able to possibly do some of the repairs on our own, that's a huge change, that in itself. Plus now you also have Hillsborough County and you have Jacksonville and two other entities in which we can feed off of, possibly even, there's always an opportunity to purchase parts and share parts through interlocal agreements or through some type of mechanism, but that's something we don't have right now, correct?
I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
I've dealt with as an engineer out at the port, I've dealt with marine sanitation devices and stuff like that, so I understand exactly the difference between you being able to repair it yourself or having to call someone in. So, but I'd like to see those numbers, and then I can make a better informed decision as far as if she wants to look into warranty.
Yeah.
And Bill wanted to.
Just a few things,
Bill, under the microphone for the audience.
There's mainly three main components to these machines. The core, which is the blower part, and the motor and the fan. The control system, a little computer that controls everything, and then a big inverter VFD that handles the electricity part. A core, I don't know Neuros's quotes or anything, but they're probably 20, 30 grand for a core. Plus then we can physically install a core or an inverter, but Neuros will need to make a site visit to start it back up. It's very specialized equipment. The control side, the PLCs, the HMIs, the electric part, that's the part we can order from Ranger. That's the blowers we have now, they're fine, but they're 100% proprietary. There's nothing on there we can order from anybody except the manufacturer. And so the warranty, I don't want to speak to whether it's a good or bad deal, but I wouldn't just throw it out. At least consider, which it seems like you want.
All our blowers are working right now?
No,
No,
we're down to one.
down to one turbo, a partial. Sorry.
So we're gonna buy three, basically one main, a backup, and then another one just a backup for a backup?
Are you asking where we are right this moment?
No, we need
Future
two,
quantity.
we need two to run the
We
plant.
need 2 turbos, 24 hours a day,
Okay.
365, never shutting off for even a minute. I mean, they can for a few minutes, but that's how they run. The third is for redundancy.
So right now we only have one running and we need two?
We have 1 fully functional turbo, and a turbo we can only run to 60%.
Okay.
And then we have 2 green ones from the 70s that are outside. They're old dinosaurs, but they're very, you know, they can't. They're one of those has been turned on to supplement the one that comes on 60%. So to be quite honest, we need this program.
And we will be looking to renting a proper unit probably for the next 4 months, because we can't take a chance of losing any of those.
That was mine.
So we will be, yes, we'll be moving forward. That rental will be somewhere between $6,000 to $10,000 a month. But that is needed. They have to ship that in from Texas. We don't have a way of buying even a temporary one or an old one. We just haven't found a means or a way to do that.
Yeah, we need to.
But that's within the current, we don't need to vote on that.
You
That's
do not,
within
that's
your-
operations.
The manufacturers come in next week, which they might get the other one operational. So it's not totally.
Is there an energy efficiency pickup with these new models?
Absolutely, the turbo
Ballpark,
blowers are very
10%?
energy efficient, they're low noise, so those are great additions.
Commissioner Willis, you had a question?
As far as the contingency money, you asked for how much?
I just gave 125. Again, it's just something, so if we have to spend additional.
A placeholder, right?
Yes, a
It wasn't
placeholder.
based on,
It goes back to the budget if it's not used, but any large project should have some 10 or 15% contingency. With today's market, we don't know the cost. So I'm fine with the 800. Again, it's just something, so if we have a need for something, we can order it and keep moving. I may even bring something back to you at mid-year or a different time of the year if the dollars change.
That's more than a 10% contingency.
It is, yes, sir. 70,000 would be that, yes, sir.
Understood. I'll call the question.
need a motion?
We have a motion.
Well, we have
And
a
a
motion to
second.
discuss.
I made a
No,
motion to
you did,
approve.
he did.
Okay.
I made a motion to approve.
Any public comment? Sorry?
I guess I didn't call the question.
John Dillon, I didn't know what brand was existing or not, doesn't really matter. But I'd give a suggestion for the city to either sell or donate the old ones to other city, county, or state operations that need for parts for old ones that they have. Help somebody else for their scrap or to use it, still have their operations working. If you take a look at it, again, say some city, counties, cities, may have conditions these are, they may need parts too. Instead of just scrap them and junk them, get somebody to sell them to them or donate them to somebody.
We have an auction process that we must go through, so yes, sir, I agree. So that's something we can look into once we have the new units in place.
I would keep the existing units stored at our facility for at least a year, in case something else does go wrong, then we can throw one of them back in there real
Prudent.
quick, but to your point, we don't mind selling or auctioning off
Yeah.
those to other municipalities that need help.
So we got one that's perfectly fine now, one unit is perfectly fine.
I wouldn't say it's perfectly fine, it's having issues with surging.
Okay.
Next week, the company will be looking into that. They're supposed to be looking at all 3 blowers.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. General public comment. Ms. Scott?
Should have done with the engineers up here, they're gonna pick that apart.
Good evening. I wanted to wait till this public comment because I didn't want to steal Commissioner Willis's thunder as the Port Commissioner. And I saw her at the meeting last week, and I was appointed by Commissioner Van Valkenburg to be one of the Port Ambassadors. So just to follow up on some of the information, and I encourage you to go online and look at the minutes, the economic report it's online, it's pretty interesting. their meeting's very brief, like 2 hours once a month, so consider that. But as to the passengers, they had 700,000 passengers leave in December alone. They have exceeded their expectation as far as passengers in the last quarter by 9%. So if you're seeing a lot of traffic around here, you know where it's coming from, or at least a lot of it. Their budget's enviable. I don't know how local municipalities, their poor neighbors, can tap into any of that, but they're $7.6 million over budget. I mean, it's getting the money. They're really surprised at how much money they've taken. They're 26.1 million over expenses for the quarter. So I'll tell you, it's enviable. So maybe there's some local. Interlocal isn't an option, but just how can they maybe look at the impacts they have on the local municipalities? That conversation's been going on for the last 20 years. I don't know how it would help for you all to be a little bit more involved, or for them to want to talk to the neighboring municipalities about the issues that they're experiencing. Know one thing for sure, when you've got 9% over your proposed customers, you're not going to do anything to prove that. So, thank you.
Any other public comments? Mr. Twanson?
Good evening, Tim Tumulty, 50-year-old resident of Cocoa Beach. I'd like to thank everyone that showed up for the Kite Festival we had. It was phenomenal. If you didn't actually go to it, you could see it from just about anywhere in Cocoa Beach. And something that a lot of folks don't realize, that the reason it's actually here is because of John Lose sitting over here. He was the spark that got it from his hometown up north. Don't remember exactly where it is, John. Do you want to?
Ship Bottom.
Ship Bottom. Ship Bottom. Who knew? And so there's a kite festival there every year, and he brought it to our attention a couple years ago, before COVID, and we mulled it over, and finally, it happened this year. So we expect it to happen going forward every year, January. Friday Fest, of course, is going to continue to go on. We've got one this month. One thing I want to say about the commission, we had a meeting or training at the beginning of the year on Robert's Rules, and having a motion and not closing the motion and having another motion open. So Commissioner Williams, when you made a motion to discuss, that opens a motion. That means you have to vote on that motion or close the motion. Am I correct?
Which we did.
No, I'm not an expert conversation. I'm just.
Which we did. The mayor asked us to vote on the motion to discuss, and we did.
There was no vote. It was not a vote. It was a first and a second. And so you had a motion to discuss, and then you discussed, and then created a motion to vote on the issue. It's confusing. It gets confusing up there. What's going on? Basically, you have a motion to for the issue, to bring it to a vote, and that's when the discussion begins. You don't need to make a motion to discuss. We had that discussion in that training, but that's all. Just throwing that point out there, just for clarity in the future. But thank you very much. It's been a short meeting, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Rick Anderson, 1800 Minuteman Causeway. Very briefly on the issue of golf carts, when we are discussing it, I still believe that any golf cart operating on any city road needs to have some kind of an identifying tag on it. And I think that if the city has to issue their own tags, and there's a cost involved, that the owner of the golf cart should be required to have a tag on it, because I believe that we need to have some way to identify them in the event of the inevitable accident, when it happens, not if it happens.
Thank you. And lastly, I forgot to mention, insurance, in case you haven't gotten your renewal, be prepared for sticker shock. I know of a few condo buildings, one premium went up $100,000. I got canceled after 8 years of paying, no claims, and it's not only gonna be the amount, they're requiring additional insurable coverage, because all the insurance companies know the building costs have risen. So insurance is one of the biggest crises we're gonna have on a barrier island in the beachfront community, and it's not gonna get better. My neighbor just got his renewal, it's $10,000.
And I don't know what your bank's like, Mayor, but the home equity process for a loan, if you need to pay your homeowner's insurance.
I don't do residential, so.
Anyway, the process, since Wells Fargo went down, is a lot more arduous, and it takes a lot longer. I can't imagine what it's doing to the real estate market for the people that are buying contingent on getting a home loan. The length of the process for home equity loans and home loans is exponentially, well, maybe not exponentially, but significantly longer than it used to be.
All right, well, on that happy note, meeting adjourned.